Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Tim, High News Vinyl, your friendly neighborhood vinyl guy, back again. It's been a minute, I know. Probably been about a month. I got no excuse. I just don't. Been busy, doing things, trying to enjoy life, trying to enjoy some TV, start playing games again, which I haven't done in forever. Shout out to the fine folks at Diablo Immortal. Not a paid advertisement, but it's Diablo is one of my favorite franchises, so they put out a free mobile game, so that's been taking a lot of my time. Just doing. So, how you doing? Everybody good? Cool. So, you probably clicked on this and knew what I was talking about before I started rambling off of the mouth, and that's Vinyl Me Please. So, a little over a year ago, we started seeing things like this popping up all over the VC, where everybody was saying it was getting too expensive, right? And then everybody raised their prices. So, is it really expensive anymore? Yes, it's still more expensive than going into your shop and buying a $30 record, but they're curated, and I get that, and the quality is above just a standard everyday release. So I've been kind of paying attention to their lineup over the last few months, and nothing really grabbed me yet, and I'm just like, okay, well, if you think about it, $43, because that's the membership of a cost of a 1 month. And that's like buying a $35 to $38 record plus shipping, but 43 is flat, so they're figuring the shipping included. That's like buying a Tone Poet or something like that. So cost prohibitive, they're on my radar again. Well, they showed one. I was like, you got me. I'm back. If you knew the lineup, you probably know that I was going to get this. That's Tribe's Low End Theory. This is a top 10 album for me. And this is also one of those albums that this and Midnight Marauders, I cannot separate. It is a 1A to 1B. It literally feels like it's the same project just a couple years later. So if you're not familiar with Vinyl Me Please, they do limited pressings, very thick cardboard jackets, very much an attention to detail. Now, I already had a copy of this on wax, but knowing that they were going to punch it up just a touch and dial it in probably a little bit slicker was intriguing to me. But also they pressed it at 45 RPM, which was very intriguing to me. So went ahead and did the thing and ordered it, and so glad I did. Like I said, top 10 album for me. Front to back, this thing is just chock full of hits and songs you would know. Excursions, Bugging Out, Rapper Motor, Butter, Songs from the Abstract, show Business, Vibes and Stuff, Infamous Date Rate, Check the Rhyme, Everything is Fair, Jazz We Got, Sky Page or What, and then closing out with the ultimate in group posse cuts, if you will, scenario. So now they do extra goodies as well. They included this lovely little print, which, I don't get things framed much. This one might. I usually would keep all this kind of stuff with the record, but Tribe is one of my favorite hip hop groups of all time. It's one of my favorite groups of all time. So that one I don't know. 2 LP on red, and then ultimately on green wax as well. If you're not familiar with Vinyl Me Please, they also put a booklet in with the album with some, additional liner notes, if you will, and everything. And I was very happy with this. I was very happy with the pressing of this. See if I've got the book handy. Yeah. Someone's probably already shown it by now. I was very happy with the pressing with this. I was very happy with the quality of this. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to at least see what is on deck for next month. And look, waited for the next month, and this one popped up. This is the debut album from Justice. It's called Cross. This is effectively known as Cross. That is the title of the name, which Justice kind of adopted for quite some time into their presentation. Again, very thick cardboard stock jacket. It does come. This one didn't come in polylined, which I was a little disappointed at. It does come with a little poster of sorts with a mock autograph on it, which, I thought was a nice little touch and stuff like that. But this is, this is a great answer to the question, how do you listen to 400 albums at once? So if you're not familiar with Justice, they are a dance, EDM, house, disco producer duo from France. And they claimed that they sampled over 400 records for this album in micro samples. So they would, use like literally a kick or a snare or a drop or something. I mean, they wouldn't sample like a bar. I mean, they would literally just use fractions of a second. And with Justice, they really kind of took a slow time with this one. They were on a couple of comps. They were originally released on was it Ed Banger? Ed Banger Records. So this came out in 2007. This is the 15 year. Yeah, 2007. So again, pressed on 45 RPM on this gold swirl wax. Wax doesn't really show up the swirl that well on the camera, but so they did a couple of like singles comps stuff for Ed Banger Records, and they kind of got a name for themselves, and there was a lot of interest and hype in the duo by the time this album came out. Things like Genesis or DANCE definitely got some airplay, but it's a lot deeper than that. If you have an affinity or an ear for that EDM stuff, it's a really good album, and it's an important album because it really, I think, pushed open the door for the EDM style to really headline it at a lot more festivals and things like that. I mean, it seemed like Justice, once this album came out, they just were taking off, right? So, and I thought it was an important album, and I was like, all right, well, that's up on deck. I'll go ahead and do it. So I was glad I did, and again, pressed at 45 RPM, which I like because this one is meant to be played at a higher volume, and it holds it well. So, so I'm intrigued now. So knowing that they had some things, and they have a lot of like their back catalog that you can get at a cheaper price, so on and so forth. I went ahead and sprung for one more because it's an important album to me. Not in my top 10, but still very important. And again, in the hip hop vein, this is one of those, it's going to be on a lot of best of lists, like, top albums and things, especially this group. And that's Public Enemy's third album, Fear of a Black Planet. So at this point, Public Enemy had already been on the scene with Yo Bum Rush the Show with their kind of more of aggressive style and politically driven lyrics. And then It Takes a Nation of Millions just blew the doors open for them. But this album was not without controversy. So this album, in coming out, this album, there was some issues with Professor Griff, who was there. He had no contribution to the group sonically at this point. He would in the later years, but he was charged with their security team, the S1Ws, if you will. And they used to do drill skills on stage and stuff like that, almost very militant style. he did an interview and kind of shot from the hip and said some really stupid things. So they had to kind of ostracize him from the group. He eventually apologized and made amends and was welcomed back in. But there's still that aura that hangs over him about some of his comments that he made. But this was a very, I mean, obviously all of their albums are politically charged, but whereas I think It Takes a Nation of Millions was their rally cry to the government of the wrong, of some of the wrongdoings, this really looked at, you know, the culture itself and how, you know, it was perceived in the way of, you know, of African Americans, of blacks. And, you know, when you come down to songs like Polly Want a Cracker and Fear of a Black Planet that address interracial relationships, Who Stole the Soul, you know, which really attacks like the music culture in and of itself. 911 is a Joke, which was a huge hit for them. Fight the Power, which was a huge one for them as well. Burn Hollywood Burn, which to me, being a hip hop fan when this album came out and they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a song with Big Daddy Kane and Ice Cube, and my brain just went, because if you'd asked me my three favorite MCs at that point, it would probably have been Chuck D, Ice Cube, and Big Daddy Kane, just to have them all on one track. And it was actually that track that kind of inspired Ice Cube to get the Bomb Squad to produce his first album. So the production on this is just insane and just a huge wall of sound. But obviously a lot of controversy came with this one. But this album is another one of those, it's really a moment in time album that still stands lyrically for the most part to the test today. And being a huge Public Enemy fan, I had to have it. So this is pressed on 2 LP, one blue and one brown, a brown splatter. And to my knowledge, this is the only official 2 LP pressing of this album, which was another reason why I wanted it. So the album is well over an hour. I want to say it's closer to like 68 minutes. It's a long one. And when it came out, they put it on one record. It sounded like crap. You know, at that time I was a DJ. You couldn't DJ with it because it was so condensed on either side that you just had way too much. I think that the reissues of It Takes a Nation of Millions do a real good job with punching it back up. I still would love to see that on a 2 LP, but that one comes in at about 49 to 54 minutes. So it's bad, but it's not pushing over an hour. This one well over an hour, and it really needed the 2 LP press. So you know, seeing that in the Vinyl Me Please catalog, I absolutely had to have it. And then I was like, all right, so then they sent me an emailer about the teaser for what was coming up. And I was like, well, I'll make my decision, you know, if this is gonna really be a thing. Because again, I mean, a year and a half ago, whenever these price hack things started, I mean, the prices were insane. We were all like, no, we're out, I'm gone, screw this. You know, it was a price tag, right? But comparatively speaking, they're not as bad anymore. And it does seem that they're kind of scratching my hip hop itch, where I don't have to either question was a press that united, or, you know, get some beat up copy that somebody thought that they were going to be DJ Premier with, and wiki DJ Premier. So they announced this month for the hip hop lane, which I'm actually subscribed to the Essentials lane, believe it or not. But the hip hop lane was the debut album from Gang Starr, No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is Guru, another one of my favorite MCs, and DJ Premier. Definitely in my top 3 producers of all time, maybe top 2. It's him and Dilla. It's tough. But so I was like, all right, I'm in. And I started thinking, I was like, you know what? You're either going to press it on 2 LPs, which is fine, but it was like 45 minutes, so maybe it's going to be at 45 RPM, which would make it sound great. They're doing a second album full of like remixes, and sometimes like artists would do B-sides, something that would not make the album but be an important reason for collectors to go get the single, or it might have been a great club hit if on the flip of the 12-inch or something like that. So it's incorporating some of those as well. And I was like, either way, you got my money, you sold me. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in some of the others that they've announced for the quarter, so that you can take a look as well. But it also seems like, and I should have played, I probably should have done some fact finding, but they may be letting you swap for more than just out of those 4 lanes. So I did see some things that said, you know, this is now swappable, like an Outkast record or such and such record or whatever. And I was like, well, if you're going to give them more choices to swap, that makes sense, because you may look at one of the months and go, there's nothing I want. But if you can swap out of those completely, and then they have a sub pool of, here's 20 or 30 you can choose from, that might make it more advantageous to let the subscription go for a couple of months, because you might want to pick up some of those. So I'm not saying that I'm back in and of itself 100%, but they at least got me for another month. So it's worth a check, you know, it's worth a look into, and it's definitely worth it to see what they've done and what they still have. Now, they have some things that they've done that sadly I don't think they're getting back in, and that's a bummer. But there's some things that I still want that they have in stock. So I may, you know, a couple months off, couple months off, couple months off. So but that's my experiences recently with Vinyl Me Please. I mean, like I said, right now I'm happy. I'm going to at least go for them one more month, and then you know, we'll see how it goes from there. So, but hopefully everybody's doing well. In case you hadn't noticed, today is Father's Day. I'm wearing my this was a Father's Day gift to me from my family, a nice Pride Star Wars shirt.
Yes,
so
it is. I can capture that. It is.
There's the true host, right? So we're under a slight quarantine because unfortunately he had a play date with one of his friends last weekend, and his friend came back as COVID positive. He's doing well, but unfortunately Oliver also has tested positive, and he's fine. I mean, he doesn't seem to be really sick. Just a little bit of a stuffy nose.
I don't feel that bad.
No, you don't.
I still have it.
No major cough, which is good. So we're just hoping it's an extreme mild case. But right now we're quarantined. That's why there was no Record Store Day June drop for me or anything else like that. So, but Father's Day, Pride Month, Happy Juneteenth. We're celebrating it all here today. So, and his birthday is tomorrow, so he'll be.
Not only was it Father's Day today, he gets gifts, and then
tomorrow you get a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
Oh boy, so it'll be fun. Yep.
So. You guys give me stuff.
But anyway, so. But I'm going to show you a picture of something else they got me at the end. So, but hopefully you're enjoying your weekend, and the week ahead of you is not too bad. So, with that, I'm going to let everybody get back to it. Thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it. I got more on the way. I know I say that, but I do. So if I don't change shirts, I'm sorry. Anyway, we'll talk soon.